Good morning, and welcome back to Daily with the Word. I'm going to make a confession this morning. I'm a little tired of all this. Oh, don't get me wrong. I'm not tired of the devotional, and I'm not tired of teaching or preaching. I'm not saying that at all. I'm tired of this current situation. I don't want to shelter in place anymore, and I don't like the idea of social distancing, and I don't want to wear a mask, and I'm missing our church, and I'm missing the fellowship of other Christians, and I'm missing my family, and I want to spend time with my family. I want to go out to eat together. I want to do things that we normally do. I guess in a sense you could say I'm growing impatient. Now, like most of you, I'm okay. I'm actually pretty good at being patient for, well, a few minutes. Sometimes I can be patient for hours. Yeah, and I say days. But when you start making me be patient, waiting over a period of weeks and months, I struggle. Now, I've decided that I need to preach myself a message. So if you get anything out of this, that's wonderful. But I'm talking to me this morning. I decided I would look at this idea of patience in the scriptures. In fact, I divided into three main headings, okay? Number one, who's directed to be patient? Number two, how is patience divided in the Bible? And number three, how is patience developed in the life of the believer? Now, I'm just going to do the first two this morning. I'll do the third one in next week's devotional, so you'll have to look at that next Friday. But when it comes to who's directed to be patient, well, really, I don't know that you'll enjoy this very much, but there isn't anybody that's not directed to be patient. Every Christian must be patient. Paul said it to Timothy this way in 1 Timothy chapter 6. Follow after righteousness, godliness, faith, love, and patience. He also said in Romans chapter 12, verse 12, that we should be rejoicing in hope and patient in tribulation. Patience is one of those biblical virtues that we should be adding to our Christian character. Peter said it this way: add to your faith virtue, to your virtue knowledge, and to knowledge temperance, and to temperance patience. In fact, the virtue of patience, the more I look at it, the virtue of patience is a mark of every true Christian disciple. Patience is required in pastors. 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 4 says this: but in all things approving ourselves as the ministers of God in much patience. It's required in deacons. In the requirements that are listed in 1 Timothy chapter 3, it says this: not given to wine, no striker, not greedy of filthy lucre, but patient. It's required in all church leaders. Titus chapter 2, verse 2 says that the aged men be sober, grave, temperate, sound in faith, in charity, and in patience. Any servant of God is required to have patience. 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 24 says this: and the servant of God must not strive, but be gentle unto all men, apt to teach, patient. So to answer the first question, and to answer it simply, who is directed to be patient, or who is called to be patient? Well, we all are. And I tell you, honestly, that's something I struggle with at times, especially times like this. Like you, I want to be back in church, and I want to do the things that I want to do when I can do them. And it's hard for me to wait patiently for something else to happen. Probably you could say that in any situation, that we all struggle at times with patience. So how is patience defined in the Bible? Well, it took me a long time to come up with this definition to kind of cover everything in general, but I think this is a good definition. I wrote it this way: patience is the right godly reaction to the evil treatment we receive from others, and it's the right godly reaction to the negative situations we encounter in our life. Let me say that again. So patience is the right godly reaction, knowing how to react to people who mistreat us, and knowing how to react in the right way to situations that we encounter in our life. And we encounter a lot of negative situations. I was thinking about this the other day, and the truth is, patience is different from the other virtues in that you don't always need to be patient. You say, what do you mean? Of course we always need to be patient. No, you only need to be patient in negative times, in negative situations, when things are not going right. When things are going right, you don't need patience. It's one of those virtues that only comes in when things are going wrong, like now. You have to exercise the virtue of love in every situation and at all times. Kindness, gentleness, pitiful, being full of pity. All of those virtues are biblical virtues that we should practice good times, bad times, no matter what. But patience is only needed when the circumstances, well, aren't in our favor. And I don't know that we could use patience any more time than we do it now. I was trying to define the patience in its whole, and I think the only way I can do that is to use at least 3 different words from the Bible. The first word I'd like to use is the word long-suffering. I started there because, well, honestly, that's the hardest one for me. Long-suffering is defined like this. Long-suffering is the right godly reaction to people who mistreat us, intentionally harm us, or cause us to suffer. I don't know about you, but when people do that to me, when they mistreat me or they cause me to suffer or they intentionally harm me, the physical, the carnal reaction is to strike back. It's revenge. It's, I'm going to do unto you like you did unto me. The Bible says that's not what we're supposed to do. Long suffering is one of those fruits of the Spirit that is connected to patience. Galatians chapter 5 gives us that list, the fruit of the Spirit, love, joy, peace. And that fourth one on that list is this idea of long suffering. Paul put it this way in Colossians. He said, put on kindness, humbleness, meekness, and patience. It's something you have to make sure that you are doing. Steve Currington, the founder and president of Reformers Unanimous, used to say it this way: long suffering is the ability to suffer a long time under the mistreatment of others without growing angry, resentful, or bitter. Whew, that's tough. Let me say that again. Long suffering is the ability to suffer a long time under the mistreatment of others without growing angry, resentful, or bitter. So when I say we need to be patient, literally when the Bible says we need to be patient, we need to be, part of that is this idea of long suffering. There's another good Bible word that you could use to define patience, and that's the word forbearance. Paul said we should walk worthy of the vocation you were called, with meekness, long-suffering, and forbearance. You say, well, what is the difference between long-suffering and forbearance? Well, long-suffering is the right godly reaction to people who mistreat us. Forbearance, I believe, is the right godly reaction to the faults and failures and weaknesses of others that sometimes unintentionally affect us. I would say it this way. Forbearance is learning to suffer long with the shortcomings of others, where it's not intentional. They didn't mean to hurt you. There were just circumstances that they couldn't avoid, and you had to wait on them. Unintentional, we're talking about unintentional actions that provoke feelings of frustration, irritation, better word we like to use, aggravation. Forbearance literally means to put up with. It's a gracious, loving tolerance of another person's faults. So when you think of patience, you need to think of being long-suffering and being forbearing, willing to put up with the shortcomings of others. But the third word that I want to talk about this morning, patience, is what we find in James chapter 1. I think I read this a while ago, but my brethren, count it all joy when you fall into divers temptations, verse 2. Verse 3, knowing this, that the trying of your faith worketh patience. But let patience have her perfect work, that ye may be perfect and entire, wanting nothing. The word patience there literally could be defined as endurance or steadfast waiting. I like to use the term patient waiting. And patient waiting is the right godly reaction to the circumstances that try us. Like now, the circumstances that we have, we don't really enjoy them. We want to get out and do what we want to do. Patient waiting is what we need when we face situations that provoke feelings of anger or frustration or irritation, sometimes of despair and depression, and a whole other host of negative feelings. Simply put, patient waiting is the ability to wait on God and trust in His goodness regardless of the circumstances. Wow, when I think about that, yes, I need to be more long-suffering, and yes, I need to work better with others and be more forbearing. But I really need to patiently wait and learn from the situation that I'm in. I think when all this is over, we'll all look back and see that God had a plan in it all, and God was trying to teach us something. And maybe one of those things he's trying to teach us is to learn to patiently wait on him. Can I say it this way? Patience is not easy, but patience is expected in the life of every believer. And while we don't like to wait, sometimes we're called to wait. If we do that, we show others that we are trusting in God and not in the circumstances and not in ourselves. And I hope that you, like me, can learn a little bit more about patience. In fact, in our next devotional, I'm going to talk about how patience is developed in the life of the believer. I hope you'll join me for that.